All right, let's go to Eric in Wichita, Kansas. What's up, Eric?
Hey, Dr. John. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You got it, man. Hey,
I,
thanks for calling, and you got to hear how the sausage is made, man. It's pretty good.
I did. Thanks for all you do, and my wife and I are huge fans, and we listen to you for a long time. And bricks and paintings are talked about frequently in our house. So,
Oh man, that's so great, dude. That's awesome, man.
yeah.
So what's up, brother? How can I help?
Okay, so I'm going to give you just a quick snippet of a background, and then I'll ask the question. But
Okay.
there's a big disagreement that what my wife and I have, and it stems from our 25-year-old daughter is in a relationship. She's now married to a convicted child molester, registered sex offender.
Whoa.
And
So she is married?
she is married now, yes.
Okay.
And so the question is, what should be our role as Christians? What should be our role and our attitudes toward him? And I think, and I've taken the road of, I want nothing to do with him. I don't want him in my house. I don't think he's safe. And my wife has a huge heart, and she wants to make everyone happy. And she thinks that we should forgive him and allow him to be a part of our lives and just be cautious.
Okay. What was the offense?
Lewd misconduct of a 14-year-old girl.
So
when he was 20.
He hooked up with a 14-year-old, didn't have sex with her, but
Right.
okay.
And of course, he says he's innocent.
Of course.
But he pled guilty.
Okay. Sometimes that's the easiest way out, and sometimes people get bad legal advice, and so that doesn't automatically mean that they're guilty. But yes, I've met very few people on the sex offender registry list that aren't completely innocent, bro. I didn't do anything. And I've also had some folks in my life, a couple of former students that ended up on that list, I think wholly unjustly. And so that's why that question is important. What happened? How old is he now?
He's 27.
Okay. Did he go to jail?
Yes.
Okay. How long was he in jail?
I think he was in jail for 2 years.
2 years. Okay. And what is his what's his life look like now?
That's the thing. It's horrible. I mean, it's she met him. I'll just give a little more background on it if you don't mind. But she met him 5 or 6 years ago and brought him into our lives. She had left our home and gone to college and had some roommates, and then decided to move in with him and his family. And that's not as a boyfriend, but just brought him around. We accepted him. I never did like him, to be honest with you. He's just creepy, and he's a big talker, and figured out very quickly that he can't tell the truth.
Mm.
And so because my daughter liked him, I rolled my eyes and I just tried to play nice and just put up with him. And then through the first couple of years, he interacted with our extended families through graduations, birthday parties, holidays, funerals. He would show up, and that's the part that's so hard for me to take now. And even my daughter, I have a couple of boys too, and during that time, they had people here at our house all the time. This was the place where the high schoolers hung out. And so there was girls here all the time when he was here. And we didn't know this at first about...
That's a violation of his parole, huh?
Well, that's what we're finding out. Exactly. So he had a parole officer for a long time that did nothing, and he just could do whatever he wanted. And now just I think it was last year, he got a new parole officer and really cracked down on him. And we're finding out all the things he can't do. And, but he just, and we didn't, like I said, we didn't know it at the time. And when about 4 years ago, they had a baby. And soon after the baby was born is where I just did a Google search.
Okay.
And I found out.
Okay.
And I confronted them, and of course he didn't do it, and all this and that. And I was just furious because I was just thinking back of all the times that we had put people we care about in the same room as this.
Absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
And then right after the baby was born, then he took off and took him away from us in retaliation of us finding out and my reaction. And we didn't see, we'd see him, but whenever we wanted to see him, we couldn't. And he just played this little manipulative game with us and took her to Vegas and basically told her, if you don't marry me, then I will take your son and you'll never see him again. So she married him and told us about 2 months later. And she never refers to herself as his wife or anything. She doesn't.
So here's a couple of things. Hold on. Here's a couple of things.
I ramble. So
no. Hey, trust me. If you've listened to my show, I ramble bad. So good to meet another rambling man. There's a couple of false dichotomies going on here that we can just bust right through them. Okay. You can call his parole officer and say for the last 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, he's interacted with numerous teenagers and children because he deceived us. As a clear violation of his parole. You can report him. Number two, your daughter can, if she is trapped, if she's being held against her will relationally, she can go get an attorney and say, my husband is on the sex offender registry. He has continually violated his parole being around young kids. He threatened me to steal my child, and I tearfully and fearfully got married to him because I don't lose my kid. Now I'm clear-minded, I'm sober thought, and I need out of this thing, but I don't want to lose my baby.
Right. Well,
she
won't do that.
She won't. I'm telling you, she won't lose her baby. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right. No, we told her that, and there's more to the story. So she's adopted. We got her at 2.5 years old. She's had a troubled life.
Yeah.
But a good life. We had her in counseling. We had her in therapy.
Sure. Y'all did what you could because you loved her. Yeah.
And she's bipolar.
Yep.
And she's made bad choices. And we've had, when we get her by herself and have conversations, it's the I know. We can talk sense to her, but the minute she goes back, then she is just sucked back into it. And she left him one time.
Yeah.
And but then 3 days later went back.
All right, so here's I think I'm going to make everybody mad with my answer here, and I reserve the right to come back in a couple episodes and change my mind because this is one I just need to think through.
Okay,
you're making two choices here. Number one, am I going to be in a relationship with this guy? And number two, am I going to be in a relationship with my daughter and my grandson?
Right.
Those are two different questions you're going to be answering, but you're going to be answering with the same decision. Okay. So in many ways, you're playing a long game here for the heart and soul and mind of your daughter and your grandkid, because this relationship doesn't last. It ends. We all know this. Right.
Right.
And so we're playing a long game here. The second is, man, and this is hard. I got a 6-year-old daughter. Okay. I got a 12-year-old son.
Oh yeah.
But I have to say I'm a part of a society that has rules and boundaries and penalties. And when you have paid your penance, I'm not holding up my end of the bargain if you return to society as we all agreed, and I continue to not allow a shred of redemption in your life. That doesn't mean I'm going to put my hand back in the bag and get bitten by a rattlesnake again. That does mean that for me, I err on the side of redemption. I also could give two craps about the words that come out of your mouth. I got to see actions. And so I'm less concerned that he went to jail for X number of years for what he did. He got out. He paid his penalty. I'm way more concerned that he instantly violated parole. Because on top of being somebody who hooked up with a 14-year-old, he is somebody of no character. Who, and more importantly, He has no
That
he has no regard for the law because, I mean, just think about it. You just get out of jail and they tell you if you go within 200 feet of somebody under the age of 18, you violate your parole, you go back and you're going to go longer. And he didn't care enough to leave the house. I would have left that house running and screaming. When my girlfriend's little brother showed up with some of his friends. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He didn't care.
No, and there's just so many red flags that.
So here's what I would do if I was you. Okay. And this is me just off the top of my head here. I would invite him out to a very direct conversation with just us two and say, here's the deal. You've lied to me since the day I met you. You've not been a person of integrity. You're on the sex offender registry list and you've got every story in the book, but fine. You're also married to my daughter and you're the father of my grandson. I'm willing to give you access to me in return, but in return for the privilege of that access to my family is crystal clear honesty from this second forward. And you're gonna have breakfast with me once a week. You're gonna check in with me. And if you choose,
okay.
does that make sense? So here's what you're doing. You
Sure.
are leaning into that relationship, but he's got to bring it. And let him know if you choose to not come to breakfast with me, if you choose to lie one time to me, my wife, my daughter, you are choosing to opt out of our life. And I know you've broken the law 100 times since you got out of jail. I will do everything I can to send you back to jail and get you out of my family's life. Everything. But I'm also willing to open up my front door to you. If you
Okay.
walk the walk. Here's my thinking on that. I know the recidivism rates for people who are registered sex offenders who don't get help. People who do get help, it just depends. That's a whole other conversation. But who don't get help, it's so high. He's going to do something stupid again and hurt somebody. But he's been let out, right?
That's right.
He's out. It might be that this 14-year-old looked 18 and he was 20? And he's a young, squirrely looking 18-year-old. Looked like a young, squirrely 18-year-old, and he happened to be 20. Like,
I understand.
Whatever, right? I mean, whatever. Here we are. I'm way more concerned at his cavalierness, your daughter's story.
There's his brother's in jail now for doing the same type of thing to a 10-year-old.
Jeez,
and his dad has molested his sister and never got caught. And so, to the point where he says to my wife, "Don't come around when my dad's around because it's not safe." But it's the environment they choose to live in. But
so maybe the harder conversation is between you and your daughter.
Okay. I appreciate the idea, though. I think because since I found out, he's scared to death of me. So if I'm around, he leaves. If he drops off the grandbaby or whatever. But
I mean, you probably haven't made it super welcoming, right? I wouldn't have.
No,
right?
Absolutely
right?
not.
Yeah.
No, I want him to be uncomfortable.
There you go. And so maybe man. Yeah, I
think the relationship with the daughter, I think she wrote me a letter about a year ago.
Okay.
And I just pulled that letter out in the last couple of days, and she thanked me for everything, said I made bad choices, but you still love me. And actually, I need to read that letter once a month.
Yeah, you do, because you beat yourself up over the situation now. You're blaming yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
You guys worked your butts off. Okay? You'll love that girl with everything you had.
Yes.
And it might be a season, a harrowing, nightmarish season, where you call your daughter and you take her to breakfast and you say, "This man's not safe. I can't stand by and watch my grandkid my baby girl be in this situation. And I also know the limits of what I can do as an adult. You're a grown up. You can do what you're going to do.
Right.
And so I am choosing to opt out of our relationship for this season because you've chosen him over us. And good to you. You leaved and cleaved. I just can't participate in this. I can't. And I'll always love you. I will not always love your decisions. Those aren't mutually exclusive.
You're right.
But at some point, I have to, for me and my family, we got to draw a line. This guy can't come to our house. He can't. I can't. No.
But could we just allow her to come and bring the kiddo? And just knowing that he's not welcome, or is that just...
I mean, you can, but you're putting your daughter in a position to choose between her husband and her family.
Yeah, and that's what she's done the last couple of years.
Yeah,
last 4 years, actually.
That's choosing to create an environment where you know your daughter can't win.
That's true.
Right? I mean,
and that's what it is.
It's what you're doing there is you're making her she becomes the fulcrum of that leverage. You want what you want because you want to see that kid and you want to hug your daughter, but you do it at the expense of her husband. And so she's got to choose to exit out of her relationship momentarily with her husband to enter into a relationship with mom and dad. And then she's got to exit out of that one to get back to, I mean, that's just go run and be free. If you're choosing him, go run and be free. But choosing him means you are choosing to opt out of our relationship, and it breaks our heart because we love you so deeply. This one's tough, man. Thanks for letting me think through this one out loud. I do think, faced in a similar situation, I would take him out just man to man and say, here is how this is going to go. And your margin for error is 0. I better not see you spit on the sidewalk. I better not even get a whiff of you being dishonest. You will tell the truth. And you may not even know what telling the truth looks like because your dad is a scumbag and your brothers are scumbags. And you grew up in a house of evil and dysfunction and molestation and disgust. I'll model for you what it looks like. I'll give you a shot. But because you've lied so much previously, your margin of error is 0. But I'll be that man you didn't have. And then it's checkmate, brother. Your move. And after that, it's a hard conversation with my daughter. Let me know how that conversation with him goes. I'd love to know how that breakfast or lunch turns out. And it may be good, Eric, for you to write down what you want to say to him. That way it doesn't get emotional, doesn't get fired up. And when he tries to protest, you can say, hey, I just need to read you this letter. Let's start there. That's a heartbreaker, my brother.